Hi again then guys, and so we've got another Gran Turismo 6 drag spec setup for you today, and this time it's for, in my opinion, the vehicle which, more so than any other on the game, really deserves more power than that which it has. In real life it's one of the quickest cars in the world, it has one of the best tuning potentials of any supercar certainly, but also by extension of pretty much any car in general. They're tuned up to around 2,000 horsepower in real life, and it is of course the Saleen S7. Quite commonly underappreciated as a drag car, not so much as a top speed car, but definitely as a drag car. I'm using racing soft tyres, but I know many people have their own preference on tyre use. For brakes I've increased the rear balance to 6, again that's personal preference though. As far as the suspension, we've got the rear ride height not quite as low as it can go, and that's so that the car doesn't bottom out when you launch off the line. As far as front ride height, again, not quite as high this time as it can go, because you don't want the car, again, to bottom out off the line just for the sake of top-end performance, because this is a full-range drag tune, not just a top-end tune. For the springs, we've got 10 on the front and 8 on the rear to take up that weight transfer off the line. Same on compression for the dampers, 3 on the front, 1 on the rear for the same purpose. Dampers on 4, anti-roll as high as possible on 7, camber and toe neutral to get as much tyre contact to the road as you can. For the gearbox, this is not a draft tune. All you need is to get it through its performance range as quickly as possible and to get up to that top speed as soon as possible. You don't need to be slipstreaming in this car, so this gearbox setup is not designed for that. So you want an auto setting of 249, then for the individual gears 3.7, 2.3, 1.6, 1.2, 950 and 775 with a final drive of 2.5. For the diff, the lowest initial torque to reduce wheel spin, high acceleration and low braking. You want both of your power upgrades of course, and as usual I will be using NOS on this run. You want the full weight loss package, and this is where, as with some of my other recent rear wheel drive drag tunes, you can kind of split down 2 different paths depending on what you need the car for. If you plan to use it, as I think most people would, as a longer distance drag tune, say 3, 4, 5,000 metres, then have the ballast at 0, because you just don't need it. If, however, you're planning to use it as a quarter-mile car, I would recommend adding 100 kilos of ballast and place that all the way to the back to help give those rear tyres more grip, and it really does make a massive difference, especially in the quarter-mile. Now with my other rear-wheel drive tunes, I sometimes add a 200 kilo ballast, and you'd probably assume that that would be better to get as much grip as possible to the rear. In this car though, that's not the case. It does make you get to 60 fractionally quicker, but it's actually no quicker over the quarter mile, and it severely affects it as soon as you pass the quarter mile, so it's not really worth giving it the full 200 kilos. I tested it as well on 150, and again, it's just not really worth it. So, you want your traction control turned off, of course, and I would recommend really using a manual, but I usually use auto with my drag tunes, simply because I can't be bothered to do otherwise. Now, as always, we're put up against a typical opponent that this car could come up against, in this case a very popular drag car, which I've put some of my other tunes up against in the past, and it's the Toyota Supra, 940 horsepower, also using NOS, both a rear-wheel drive of course, both fully tuned, and of course I'm not holding back in the Supra because that would be ridiculous to compare it. So let's see how they compare. Now this is of course running the ballast, so this is more of the quarter-mile tune than the top-end tune, and you can really see the difference that that ballast makes off the line. It absolutely leaves the Supra in the weeds really. Top end though, this car can still, as you can see, leave the Supra standing, and that Supra is actually faster than this car without NOS. The top speed is 291 compared to this car's roughly 288-ish. As I said though, this isn't a top speed tune. I do have a top speed tune for this car. The acceleration's not quite as quick, but it cruises stronger, etc. The Supra though, my point being, is a faster car, and also has more power, so the Supra does have every significant advantage. This car though, as you can see, absolutely leaves it standing, over a second and a half quicker to the 5,000 metre mark. Now depending on whether you use the ballast or not, it does make a massive difference to either your top end or low end performance. I've listed all the differences that those Ballast being with or without it makes in the description below. You can check the times and see the differences it makes. But for a quick rundown, this car with the Ballast can hit 60 in 1.7 seconds, 100 in 3.2, 150 in 5.7, and it'll do the quarter mile in 8 seconds dead. Without the Ballast though, it can cover or get to 200 miles per hour in just over 9 seconds, and it will cover the 7,000 meter drag in just over a minute. So a seriously rapid machine, and as it happens, it actually takes the corner pretty well also, ironically, although it's, as I said, not a top speed tune. So I would strongly encourage some of you guys who perhaps do enjoy drag racing but don't use this car as often as you could to just give it a try. You may find that you really like the car, and it certainly is a very competitive model. Sadly doesn't have the power that it deserves, but it's still a very quick machine. So if you decide to use this tune, obviously I hope you have fun with it, and it's definitely competitive for its power. And if you're new to the channel or just found this helpful or interesting in general, feel free to hit that subscribe button if you want tunes like this as soon as they come out. And as always, thanks for watching.